Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Yo, hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today playing a little bit of Green White Depths. So this list is very close to that of Martin's, who's been doing really well with the archetype as of late. I wanted to have a little bit of a Maverick take on it. So obviously right now there is a lot of Fantastica in the format. So I did want to have some sort of interactions for that deck. I have gone up in Disruptor Flutes, Force of Vigors, and Deafening Silences in the board. Obviously also moved towards a road rather than cards like Tabernacle or Blast Zone. And then in the main deck gone towards a bit of a small Green Suns package in Gaddock Teeg, Endurance, and Icetill. So playing Icetill over 6, just because I value the Wasteland lock a little bit more, and obviously being able to get backstage and depths in the same turn is pretty fantastic. Yeah, I think depth should be a pretty interesting take. I think game 1 it'll be quite challenging against the card deck, trying to be faster. But I do think games 2 and 3 we do have a fair amount of disruption to bring in. It will be interesting to see where we actually cut. And I think, best practice is to really look at your sideboards for tournaments to make sure that, what are your cuts? What are you bringing in? Making sure you still have a game plan. You're not sort of taking out pieces of your deck's overall goal to obviously slow it down as well. But yeah, pretty keen just to jam and see how we go. I haven't played against the card deck yet, so pretty interested to see how it comes out. Yeah, it's nice just to play a little bit of Legacy. Playing a Legacy League with play points on depths. Change screens over here. We can obviously update the score as well. We are playing Green White Depths. Here. Cool. Yeah, I think a good way, if you are sort of a fairish player, and Green White Depths does have a combo finish, but I think it's on a fairer version of some of the combo decks. It's always a good idea to have some sort of I win button in the deck so that if the metagame is fast combo, that you do have a way to obviously get there. It sounds pretty sweet. Turn 1, Badgermole Cub potentially. We have access to Green Suns for Elvish Reclaimer. Obviously have interaction in Wasteland, so pretty happy to keep this. Especially in the blind as well. I think it has a pretty nice curve, especially with the Mox Diamond start. Losing a card for Mox Diamond, but then kind of gaining it back with the Cub is a really nice kind of addition to the deck that you don't really pick up. It's quite subtle, but it is a nice sort of value add. If we get a turn to do all that. Just a once from our opponent. Noble Hierarch. Okay. So we are most likely going to be up against Cradle control if it is a buy you into Noble Hierarch once upon a time start. I think here I'm pretty happy to go after their mana. I think best draw would be Swords of Plowshares off the Mox and then be able to Wasteland them. But I think here I just want to go for the Wasteland. And then probably Green Suns here. Off the plains for Dryad Arbor to make sure we are also getting ahead. This also sets up next turn Badgermole Cub on a Windswept Heath. It sets up potential Reliquary. Hey Benny, welcome. Hope you're doing well. I actually think Night next turn's better because it turns on obviously the combo, it turns on Wasteland. So hopefully we can kind of get to that space. white of the Reliquary has been a card I've been finding quite hard to deal with, especially once it's online, given that it has access to Talon gates to phase out itself. But it's a bit of a must answer. Okay. Well, now they have a ton of mana, which is a little bit scary. But I think here our best bet is just to go for... Next turn they have access to 4 mana at least, which obviously is already in natural at a range. It's pretty crazy. Really shows how much Badgermole adds to this deck in terms of just, you know, activating natural order. There's white. Let's see. Okay. Most likely the other night. Here we get a little bit of value with the Badgermole. We'll be able to get back the land we sacked to the night. Obviously one combo piece would be great. An answer for the white would be nice. Cub isn't too bad. Question is, how do I want to sync? I think we want to go... Have a quick look. Yeah. Okay. I kind of like these two for Badgermole. Now Dryad Arbor taps for 2 for Cub. Play the Windswept. And then make the Cub a big threat as it's got trample. I also could have just turned the Savannah into something else because this already taps for 2. See if that comes back to bite us. I'm also just going to fetch here. Yeah, I think down to the last. Okay, we have 2 more lands, which is nice. That means another fetch off the night is also... I think here we're pretty happy just going a pass. Fortunately, we can't do too much with the white of the road. We could Talon gates in their end step. Yeah, cat. That's very true. Cat Badgermole. Although we would only have access to... If we cat first, we would only have access to 3 mana. So we'd have to fetch or use the knight to be able to play the Cub. Hey, Sato-san. Hope you're doing well. I hope you found some cool tech recently on like the Hidden Gibbons level of tech. Interesting. So they're just going to pass back. Kind of makes me want to get rid of the Dryad Arbor, because that will trigger the Cub. And then with the land we get, we'll also be able to trigger. So let's go and get stage. Trigger the Cub again. Okay. I mean, a land is pretty sweet here because it does, of course, trigger the Cub. Which means they might have to use the white as a defensive spell. Do nothing. I'm pretty happy to take this. See if they want to use the white. Okay, there's one Talon Gates. That is going to be okay. Doing pretty well with Thalia, Archon, Esper Sentinel, and Sheltered by Ghosts lately. Very nice. I really like Sheltered by Ghosts, especially in builds where you can protect the creature, which is kind of odd because Sheltered by Ghosts in itself protects the creature with Ward. There were a few games against like blue-red Delver where they would Brazen Borrower the Sheltered, and that would be really tough to deal with. Ooh, they're going to Earthbend this. I think here I have to waste Earthbend and then sack it. I think I will. Wasteland. Question is, do I want something? I think I'm actually just going to copy the... Okay. Oh, but of course it has for 2. Karakas isn't too much of an issue, but it does allow me to potentially start going wide on a... I do want to keep up 2 mana for this. And that is sort of 4 mana because it's 3 mana and tap. So I can't Basing Say and also Depths. I think you were happy just to attack with 2. If they want to take the damage, that's fine. Or they're going to go for a Talon Gates, which I'm still pretty happy with. This is really just kind of spinning the wheels rather than gaining too much value. What I could have done there is to get the extra damage in, gone for Knight, but just in case I need to hold Knight up, pretty happy just to try to do this all at sorcery speed. Bog's going to be okay. They do have to sorcery speed the Basing Say on the Talon Gates if they want to do that. But I think, again, we're pretty happy just to Wasteland. Pretty free. They could fetch for Dryad Arbor. They have 1 card. Can they grow this? How big can they? I wonder if they play Echoing Deeps, because if we block, get Dark Depths, sacking a land, and then go for the combo, that does put 3 cards in the bin, making this a 5/5. What could they have? They fetch for Dryad Arbor, they sack it. This is now a 4/4. Take another land. Like, potentially... I'm just going to see, because I am quite interested in what they could have here. Does allow them to Talon gates. I think that's pretty fine as well. Because then we still have Knight, a fetch land, and another forest in the deck, so the Scythecat Cub. Yeah, I think there they might have just not thought about the depths in the stage kind of being a +3 for the Knight. Because otherwise, yeah, it's really tricky. Because even then the Scythecat Cub is just as big of a threat as the Dark Depths. Alright, we like the Erodes. Pretty interesting. Like, Flute is kind of interesting because of things like White of the Reliquary. What are we trying to do? We are trying to be a little bit quicker than them, with a bit of disruption in terms of taking them either off their mana early on with Swords and Wasteland, or taking off their sort of more powerful creatures in things like White of the Reliquary. I think we can go down on a Bojuka. Teeg does stop Green Suns and Natural Order, but I'm not too unhappy with that. The Safekeeper, I think, can come out. They typically do run Snuff out, but I think we're okay with that. Don't think we want the Doorkeeper Thrull. It's really just Natural Order targets. I don't mind the Flutes. Flute's kind of cool. Badgermole Scythecat. I think it's a good, like, just the core of trying to win the game. I don't mind the step in case I want to try to, like, endurance block the Marit Lage. Would just be the Teeg. Teeg also turns off Snuff Out, which is actually quite interesting. It only hits our Green Suns, which is nice. Endurance, I think we can just drop, seeing that we have access to Bojuka Bog if we really need that effect. I want to have the Crops, the Reclaimers, the Knights. I like the Badgermoles and the Cubs. Actually quite tough. Yeah, maybe Flute is bait. Maybe just the Safekeeper is a little bit better. I don't mind this. I actually don't mind just one Flute. The issue is with Flute is you name so many things that can just attack. If you name White of the Reliquary, still a threat. If you name Reclaimer, still a threat. I'm pretty happy to see how this goes. Just have that extra removal. Really want an opening with some sort of 1 mana removal. Just because they have so many good threats. Cool deck though. I really enjoy Cradle Control. Okay. Interesting hand. We do have turn 1 Reclaimer, and then turn 2 Badgermole on the Flagstones. We would have access to 3 mana on turn 2, getting rid of the Dark Depths. So we wouldn't be able to Badgermole and also Reclaim. I don't mind a hand. It's a hand that is, I don't care what you're doing, I'm just trying to race towards depths, but we are probably pitching the depths to the Mox. Pitch, play Badgermole. I'm pretty happy to potentially mulligan just towards one piece of interaction. Okay. Pretty happy to keep. Probably bottoming a Mox. And then we still have access to Mox, Pitch, Dryad Arbor, and then potentially even Boseiju Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. Oh, sorry, we can't, of course. Maybe turn 1 Swords, turn 2 Green Suns for Reclaimer. A little bit tricky on the mana, but I definitely don't mind the hand. Not a hand where I want to go after the first mana dork, and where I really want to probably hit, say, a White of the Reliquary. Okay. The weight means Thoughtseize. No, okay. Okay. I wonder then if we actually want to go turn 1 Mox, Pitch, Dryad Arbor, Flagstones, Green Suns for Reclaimer, and then we get to untap, have Swords for Reclaimer, play a land, and have 2 mana for the Reclaimer. I think that's where we want to be. Mox, Pitch the Dryad Arbor, play the Flagstones, go for probably one of the best draws we could have had. It really gives the hand a bit more of a plan. Next turn we get to double spell in a way. We get to activate, or we nearly got to activate. Okay. Now they also get to 1. Okay. Pretty solid turn. We are definitely going after the White of the Reliquary. And I don't mind just playing the Boseiju, holding the fetch for now. Just trying to think, if we play Boseiju this turn and the next turn draw into Wasteland, or like don't draw into another land, do we want the fetch land already in play? I don't think it kind of matters. Because we aren't running Lush. It does give us access to Dryad Arbor. No, it doesn't. I think I'm just going to play the Don't think this really hits anything. But just in case, we will play the Windswept. A lot of mana. One card left. White plus Safekeeper. Okay. I will fetch here just to get a Savannah out of. Interesting. Have to go Sage. Still. Maybe actually play Vigor. Okay. I have 3, 6, 7. Fair amount of mana. Hey Pat, what don't you like about our Snuff Out? I would say that's a reasonable time to play it. Yeah, they can't get through, which is kind of nice. But obviously they can start going for Cradle. We don't really have a great way to deal the white, thanks to the Safekeeper. The 9. Ah, there goes Teeg. Okay. Probably just want to hold this forest in hand, especially for Scythecat Cub. I assume here it's Cradle. And really just hope that top drawer is something like Green Suns and Natural Order. Obviously, Teeg in the bin is a little bit rough, seeing that we don't have like a Green Suns out ourselves to turning off those draws. Knight's a decent start. Let's fetch. Find Savannah. There we go. We will play the Windswept Cub. Still hold the forest. Just in case we draw into the other cub. Passing Say is pretty cool. Okay. Thankfully, the 2/4 and Icetill here is doing a lot of work. Now we do get to untap with Knight, which is pretty sweet. We draw one piece of the combo, we get to just do it now as well, and then replay both. No, we get to replay one piece. Stage. Trigger. Choose this one. Now I think we replay the depth because we can at least take counters off it if they bog us. Still like another way to... Karakas bounce Cradle's also pretty cool. I do like just getting the Lage into play. This is fine. Here, I assume they might just be thinning a little bit. I was still going to Talon Gates. Rid of the Icetill. Okay. Get rid of that body. Green Suns for 5. What do they have at wrist? Okay. Might just get rid of the knight here. What are they targeting? Not targeting. We can't do anything about this. Now they do have Talon gates with white. That is pretty tricky. Could have taken Steps token. I don't mind fetching. Would be great to find the other stage here, potentially Wasteland. A road does deal with the grist, which is nice. We might as well attack the Blade. We could try to find Bojuka Bog. That is a way to get rid of this Talon Gate. Probably a good reason as well to use the Icetill first. I just want to see what they do with the whites. Raw step, we will. You get a free block here. 4 damage. No? Oh. So here we can. I don't really want that. Sadly, we really wanted that instant speed. Because all of this happens with it. Probably should have played the Bog just because of the whites. That was me just passing through. Obviously, Green Suns for our own Safekeeper is kind of cool. Have their own Wasteland. They let us block, which is pretty. Also, for time perspective, I'm not going to try to depths. Ooh. Okay. So here we get to play the Bog. Trigger. Just hope we don't flip Echoing Deeps. Okay, didn't, which is nice. Now we go to combat. Act. We're going to get rid of the Talon here. We're going to try to crop away this in response. We're going to get our Echoing Deeps, copying Bojuka Bog, targeting them. Knight goes in the bin. Now they're going to activate Reclaimer. Nice. Very cool. Very nice, just to obviously play to our outs. Again, Bog last turn would have been pretty good. Just to keep them off, obviously, the 5/5s, but very happy to... Obviously, yeah. Yeah, Echoing Deep's just so strong. Even for a deck like, say, Death and Taxes that doesn't typically play mana-producing creatures, but plays a lot of creatures, so Tabernacle can be quite good. If your opponent in, say, your end step tries to Wasteland your Tabernacle to then, untap and not have to pay, if you can then crop away that Tabernacle, get Echoing Deeps to copy the Tabernacle, then in their upkeep they still have the Tabernacle to pay for. That's just a nice little addition. Other than, of course, cropping for a stage to copy the tab. I think it's just a really nice addition to the deck. And obviously there just makes that extra use of cards like Bojuka Bog, Karakas. Yeah, very cool card. Pretty happy with this hand. We have Acceleration turn 1. We have something against some graveyard decks. We have some early interaction. We have 2 big threats. So pretty happy to keep this because a land off the top as well would be a pretty welcomed, very welcome. I think something like Delver I'd be happy to see here. And Wanda's pretty much the same thing. This could still be a show and tell deck, which we are a little bit weak to. But generally, I think we'll be happy. Something like a Bauble would get that away, but the Delver wants to make more use of that. I think here, so they did choose to keep. I'm pretty happy to reset here. Especially if it is a show and tell deck, I'm pretty happy just to keep them off a turn 2 show and tell off an Ancient Tomb or something like that. And also just get a better understanding of what this deck is, because if it's Delver, we might play a little bit differently. The basic island most likely means it is going to be show and tell, so we want to be pretty quick. So Cub and Knight hand in hand. Let's go with Misty into Savannah. Sun's fired up. Okay, it is going to be show and tell. We will put in the Knight. Just hope it isn't Sneak. Okay. Attrax is pretty bad for us, but it's not the be-all or end. Okay, they found like show and tell, Omni, Sneak. A little bit trickier. Okay. The big question is, how do we win this game? Do we win by swordsing the Atraxa and going after their mana with Knight? It's tricky because if they force the swords, then we have to go and get Karakas with the Knight, which we don't really want to do. Even if they just have one land next turn, it's pretty tough. Like, is there a world where Cub could get there just by returning? The land. Okay, so next turn they would get another 15 to use the two. Don't believe here we can deal that much. One, two. We do have access to Talon gates as well, which does help with the Miracle for one turn, but obviously not if they sneak. And definitely if they want to show and tell in an NFC. We do also get extra something to put in as well, which could be a land. Okay, not nothing. I think we start with swords. Play the flagstones. Swords this. Do force it. Okay, force pitching a brain. Still, they still have like show and tell, omni, sneak. Hey, Rad Nauseum, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Go with the Cub because we're not using our mana either way. Down to 4 cards, so I assume it did drop a show and tell. It did drop the force. Didn't pick another. Actually, up here, sorry. Chose force and omni, miracle, show and tell. Okay, well that's not too bad. I don't think they didn't get the spell pierce. Interesting. Just have to take it. And then, yeah, the show and tells. Oh, what I could have done is actually try to take them off mana. Yeah, I think my only out there was actually to like Wasteland their tomb to see if they don't have the land. Yeah. Like these. I'm not a big fan of the swords. Don't mind, like the Doorkeepers are kind of interesting. Mainly for Atraxa. Probably not enough. Insurance. I don't mind some of the ETB lands because they do give us priority after show and tell. Teeg doesn't stop a whole lot, but it does, like, if we try to Disruptor Flute, show and tell, and Teeg's in play on sneak, that's kind of cool. Badgermoles might just be a little bit too slow. Let's see something like this. Like Ouphe is interesting because it just turns off Lotus Petal, and it also is just a beater. Like not great, but it's where we are. And probably just a Wasteland. I still like the 3. I think we could try to do something. I don't mind it because it has access to Force, of course, but also access to Karakas, which is, you know, a little slow, but we'll see how things go. I also don't mind turn 1 Green Suns for Dryad Arbor, turn 2 land Cub, or turn 2 Cub land into Reclaimer. I also like that Cub does give us an ETB effect. That's pretty cool. In that if we put in a land off show and tell, we get an ETB effect and then can force in response. Interesting. That's pretty cool. This also throws this and puts them on a clock. Okay. Not the worst. Still gonna name show and tell. Hit him with both. Four, five, six. Okay. Stock-ups I'm not too unhappy about. Fetch land, a crop rotation. Obviously a fetch land's great because crop could be forced. But being able to make this 3 and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Interesting. They're going to discard 2. Missed their land drop. Doesn't do a whole lot. I think here it's just attack with the Cub. Hold up the Reclaimer. There is a world as well where, like, Lotus Petal sneak attack is 2, so Deafening Silence should have been played because Show and Tell is turned off. So I think a little bit of an error there on my part. I should have definitely played. I think thinking about the play a bit more, it is tricky because they're obviously on 8 cards or 7 cards. They haven't played a land. They most likely have a Force of Will effect, and if they force the Deafening Silence, it turns off the Elvish Reclaimer. Hey Mangu, a huge thank you for the raid. I hope you're doing well. I hope you aren't too affected by. I know a lot of Europe and the UK has been hit by heat waves, so I hope Italy isn't hit by the same sort of waves. But a huge thank you. Hello everyone from Mangu's stream. I'm Dukes on Twitch. I'm an Australian legacy streamer, typically streaming FedEx like Green White Depths or Maverick. We are in game 2. We are in game 3 against Show and Tell. We got Show and Tell game 1. Game 2, my opponent just got pretty unlucky, so going in for a third. Yeah, if you like legacy content, definitely consider giving me a follow. I'm typically on the same time as Mangu, so that's always a hard bargain against his crowd and obviously his caliber, but I definitely appreciate the follows as I am, trying to get to that 4K. That'd be very cool, so I'd appreciate that. I think here it's generally the same sort of thing. We want some sort of disruption early on against Show and Tell. We still want to be going for our beats through Nights and obviously Dark Depths. So I don't want to change too much. I think we're pretty happy running this back. We did see Brotherhood's End, which is interesting. Typically, some of the older cards a pretty tricky one here because we have a lot of disruption, but we don't have a real plan. We also only have 1 land plus Mox. So there is even a world where we don't Mox and then turn 1 is just green, Yav for Dryad Arbor. It could be Mox for Dryad Arbor actually because that turns on white. But I think this sort of hand just gets a little bit too hit because turn 1 we could Deafening Silence, but turn 2 with an Ancient Tomb or Soul land, they could easily Show and Tell in a threat, and then we don't really have access to dealing with the threat. By keeping the Bog? The Bog, mainly just to keep the mana up, but there is also a nice thing about Bog is that if you put it in off a Show and Tell, and say your opponent puts in an Omniscience, you then get an ETB effect, which means that you could then do something like Beseiju the Omniscience before they get priority to be able to play anything. So unless they're playing a Cunning Wish version, it does give you access there. But yeah, typically I'd say Bog doesn't really play a role other than just having 1 more ETB effect for that sort of effect. Also, when you have Force of Vigors in the deck as well, you get more there. Yeah, I think I am going to mulligan, just because it does have that sort of red herring of all of the interaction, but no real plan. I do need to win the game, and this hand doesn't really win there, especially if we miss on a land drop off the top. Okay, we do have Sejiri for interaction. We do have, obviously, threats, so pretty happy to keep this. Probably bottom the step, as that's just a little bit better. Step is obviously a white source, Echoing Deeps. It's really between these two. I think I'm just going to bottom step because the Echoing Deeps can come in untapped as a colorless spell, a colorless source. Yeah, the island starts a little bit tricky as well because obviously Wasteland's typically quite good against their versions. So this could be Spell Pierce. I assume they might keep it in for something like a Deafening Silence on the play, or obviously a Mox or a Green Suns. I don't care too much. Hey Scryers, thank you for the Prime sub. I very much appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. I could just see if they want to use the Spell Pierce on the Mox. I don't mind that because then we can obviously use the Green Suns down the line for something else. Okay. I think he was just bottoming the Echoing. Play the Savannah. And then potentially pass here. It could also be Reclaimer and Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. But I don't mind just passing here with Bojuka open. Obviously put in a creature. But obviously if it's a ponder turn, then there might not be a way here for us to make full value of this turn. It would have to be, say, Soul Land into Lotus Petal into Show and Tell. I think just another mana off the top would be nice. We could play the Reclaimer, hold up a Seiju. Play out the Petal. Play out a Petal. Play out the Tomb, okay. So potentially here they just have Show and Tell into Neek, which is pretty tricky. Okay. We do have Karakas for this. Obviously, would love to be able to go after their mana as well. The Boseiju does allow them to get a land with a basic land type. Even if we got rid of the Petal, they could replace it with a book. And this was the kind of start that I didn't want to see with that opening hand, because even if we got to play like a Deafening Silence, I guess Deafening Silence does slow down the Lotus Petal effects, but if they get to Show and Tell in a threat like Atraxa the following turn off the Ancient Tomb, then we don't really have a plan against the Atraxa. But very interesting for them to play Island Pass, not Spell Pierce Mox, and then Island Ponder turn 2. Right, that shows Force, City, Show and Tell, Petal. So we know about these. Force, Show and Tell, Lotus, City. Okay. So we get to play the Boseiju. Play the Ouphe. Which does turn off both petals, which would turn off red. Okay. Play the Reclaimer. We did put back the Sejiri Steppe as well. So if they try to go, say... Okay, they're going to force. So now we know about 3 of the 4 cards. I think here I'm pretty happy just to let them have it. I don't want to obviously return it to the hand with Karakas because of show and tell, just putting it back in and them getting a new refuel. I think we are just going to take it. Stop. Okay. I think NSEB is just going to be fetch for fetch land. Good go for the steps comp. We do only have the 1 mana though. Obviously the Mox is turned off by the Collector Ouphe, so don't mind just getting a fetch. Fetching. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Because if we go flute, on show and tell, and then if we take them off the ancient tomb, then if they want to keep playing mana, they have to lose the City of Traders along the way. And we can still take a hit from this Atraxa. And next turn, we do have Green Suns for Dryad Arbor to give us a forest for the night. Could have, like, play Sneak. That would be pretty tricky. Because we can't get both Wasteland and Karakas for the Atraxa. Really interesting. I kind of hope it's just another stock up. Brainstorm first, okay. Interesting to play the land first. To obviously have all options. The tricky thing with the Tarn as well is that it's a red source that plays around Wasteland, and that they can just hold it up as long as they want. But the Brainstorm kind of pushes them to fetch because they probably want to get rid of some of the cards they put back. The Brainstorm kind of good for us, but it does of course mean they have more ways to get rid of the show and tell and move towards a line with sneak attack. Right. Really have to hope this actually allows us to play. Because if they force this, don't actually have anything. I kind of feel like that's what they're thinking. Like, hey, they don't actually have a forest for night to get rid of the Atraxa. If they're looking for a forest, yeah, GG's. Tough. I feel like the Ouphe was doing like enough to keep them off, but definitely a very challenging matchup where a lot of our hate just doesn't really align. Yeah. Especially Omni being able to allow them to play something straight away. I've had lines where I have had the Boseiju for the Omniscience, but the first card they played was a second copy of Omniscience, which obviously plays around Bojuka Bog really well. Sorry, Boseiju really well. Definitely a matchup that I think is sadly one we have to concede a lot. Which is tricky because it is ticking up as well, especially the versions with Lurin. But against Cradle Control, got the 2-0, Show and Tell 1-2. But hey, thank you all for sticking around. I really appreciate it, especially those in from Mengu's stream. I love Legacy. I created a website called thegreensunzenith.com, which is essentially a way to learn about Legacy Maverick. It's a pretty sweet deck. It's got a lot of history to it. Obviously, back in the day, it was a pretty banger deck. Like here for SCG Baltimore, you can see the Legacy top 8 in 2012 had like 5 copies of Maverick. Some big names there: Todd Anderson, Ross Merriam, Pat Cox. And yeah, has always been around. The the power level of the deck potentially could be pretty tough. Yeah, searching for Yav is actually a really nice heads-up play. Yeah, I think that's something I should have thought about more. And I think potentially I just, in that moment, didn't realize that the Mox was also turned off by the Ouphe, even though that's obviously why we tapped the Mox to cast the Ouphe. Yeah, I think Yav there would have been strong. Potentially even game-changing. Yeah. Because it obviously leaves us more outs for Karakas on the Atraxa. You can then start beating down with the Ouphe, which obviously is small gains, but getting us somewhere, hold up the Knight when we need to, go after their mana. Yeah, sadly, Knight didn't really age well. Some of the lands have been kind of cool. They've been printed. So Talon Gates is a great example of just like ways to build out the toolbox of another Reliquary. Like the more lands that get printed that are kind of busted in a way that you can search for them and use them straight away, Knight does get better. But being 3 mana and needing to untap to cast it, like, you know, stock up the 2-for-1 straight away, Show and Tell typically wins the game. You know, we now have Fantastica, which is 3 mana. Yeah, White Maverick looks really strong. I think if White does well, yeah, it's just always a pretty sweet deck. All right, Boba. Pretty happy to keep this. We're probably just going to go Yav into... Could also be Fetch. If it's a Bolt deck and they don't have a Bolt straight away, I like that Fetch turn 1 allows us to turn 2 Fetch, and then any sort of activation of Reclaimer is making it a 3-4. Not too sure what they're on. Oh, okay. Maybe the energy deck. I wonder here if we actually just want to go for another Ema. Next turn we can play a fetch land, play Cub. Well, shuffle straight away as well. I think here we just hold up the Reclaim. Swords Ponder doesn't give too much away. I also don't really want to use the Reclaimer when I can't save it, but maybe that's just a little bit... I think I want to keep you. I don't want to get too stuck. I think I honestly just want to get staged, because it does turn on depths, turns on crop. Oh, we're still in main phase as well. I did not mean to do that. Fortunately here, don't have a card for the endurance too. I believe this now taps for 3, which allows us to hold up the endurance, which is pretty cool. We'll play the Bog. Just because it comes in tap. Although, potentially Back to Basics is a card to think about, so I will play both basics. This also allows me to turn the stage into a basic with this mana open. Hey Bradley, apologies, I didn't see your question. Yeah, I think like some sort of Deathrite Shaman effect that only really makes sense in our deck, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like, there's definitely like potentially some sort of threat that can be found of Green Suns would be pretty cool as well. It is tricky because I would say the big draw of Maverick is if you love like creatures. It obviously has a pretty cool base when it comes to searching for green creatures through Green Suns, searching through lands through Night the Reliquary. There's something in that space. Like, I think a little while ago, if Leovold was Abzan colors, I think that would have been a really big printing for Maverick, because I don't think there's many other decks that could have played it. And I think it is kind of Maverick-ish. Urchfrizz can't. Very old. There's a crop, which is pretty nice. I'm just going to only attack with these ones, just to play around Spell Pierce on the crop, actually stopping the combo from going off. Yeah, like, I probably wouldn't mind DRS in the back in the deck. Using other swords on this is pretty good for us. They're already down to 12. But I'm pretty happy that we can, like, play a Bog here. And then still have 2 mana, 2 mana. There is a thought of cropping before they can just... before they can play a land and just hardcast Force. I think that is reasonable. I'm going to crop away this Savannah, because this mana here with Dark Depths is obviously just for Dark Depths, and there's the Force. So at least we got them. Like, there's the Spell Pierce as well we thought about. So kind of nice to be able to get that away. If I copy this, I don't think I get the land, but I don't think we get the creature, but I will try. We could also just go for beatdown. Like Dryad Arbor, copy with Dryad Arbor. I mean, that's pretty interesting. So let's just play the interesting role. Or that means I want to Talon away the Badgermole Cub because I get back this, and now we have access to swords if needed. But it's really like Supreme Verdict, potentially Terminus. We have access to swords through the Talon gates. Wasteland's pretty sweet. We can take them off the Tundra before combat to see if they do anything. Play the Snap. Hit the Force. We don't really care here. Like if we swords, they gain 2, go to 6, but then we're attacking for 5. Potentially. Probably isn't like another great target anyway. This puts them down to 1, so they can't fetch, they can't force. And it's off the top. Okay. That's pretty cool. Wasteland. I think here I'm going to hold it, especially for Cub. Jace. Ooh, now they can just Fate Seal us. Teeg. Sadly, just a little slow. Just one turn too slow. That's quite funny. Okay. 2 cards. Counterspell. Man. And now we stop playing. I actually don't think we have a great way out of this. We could try, but I think I'd rather just put some time into the next game. I don't mind the Erode. Pick out the swords because they also hit Jace, of course. I don't mind like a Force of Vigor. Flutes are kind of interesting, but they typically make their land drops. Like an extra swords can probably come out. Probably some number of Wastelands. Extra endurance isn't too bad. And then potentially a flute, because it also does just stop. Jace, of course. Could definitely go with there. Yeah, the Moxes are tricky because they don't have, like, obviously to fairy bounce, but also to somewhat play around the back to basics, it can definitely help. $15, $20. Pretty happy to. Forest, Green Suns, and to Night. Thought of Teeg is also pretty cool, but I think just getting Night down. Sweet. I mean, Tundra Start would be the best, but I don't think that's going to happen here. Honestly, I think if they go for like a Brainstorm there, I'd be pretty happy to take it out. I think the play is going to be maybe Wasteland into Night. I also don't mind Night in case they go for Jace bounce. Yeah, Wasteland the Arbor is pretty cool, but then it would have. Yeah, that's actually a great play. Really nice play. Okay. I think here we're just going to go for Green Suns for the. That happens. If not, that might just be pretty close to game. Yeah. Tough. Definitely really tough deck to fight against. The newer builds of control typically a lot easier with things like obviously dual lands, Wasteland being a bit more online, the 1-for-1 trading. Obviously, Badgermole with Terminus is pretty tricky. Yeah, I think the play that chat brought up was just really strong in just Wasteland your own land to obviously keep the land. Would be, yeah, really good move. Right, Carl. Interesting. Double Mox hand with a Green Suns. I could see us holding a Mox here and just going for turn 1 Dryad Arbor, turn 1 Reclaimer. I don't mind that. Probably pitching the Dryad Arbor, holding the Bojuka Bog. Let's go Mox. Pitch Dryad Arbor. Play the Savannah. Go for Elder. Interesting. Well, I could wait to Swords it. I'm trying to think. I think he will actually play the Boseiju more than the Bojuka Bog because it is going to be Painter. And then just pass here with Reclaimer open. I'm gonna hope. Okay, there's a Bauble. This can be okay, but if they play an Engineer, we want to respond to the ETB. Loki. Whenever a player or permanent becomes the target of an ability you control, draw a card. Okay, so if they hit us with the Bauble, they draw 2. That's pretty interesting. Whenever a player or permanent becomes a target of an ability you control, and the ability that they control is the Mishra's Bauble. Can't really stop that either with Karakas, because it does take a turn, but you can see if they want to use it straight away. Ooh. Okay. Again, I don't really need to use the swords here. And just get Karakas. Don't need to deal with the Welder right now. I am somewhat forced. The next turn, if I want to hold up Reclaimer, Karakas, and also swords, I need 4 mana. 1 mana in the Karakas, 2 in play, and then probably the Mox. If we don't draw a land, we will have to pitch the Bojuka Bog, which is pretty tricky. Unless we swords here. Yeah, it's just a tough one. I guess if we pitch the Bojuka Bog, we still have access to it through Reclaimer thanks to Echoing Deeps. So I actually don't mind just trying to hold that swords for something just a little bit better. But that's pretty interesting. Unfortunately, we would lose the ability to swords and Karakas. We would get to play the Boseiju and then the Dryad Arbor. I think just for one more turn, we just want to hold up, but we do want to play the Mox and get rid of the Bog. This way we can hold up Swords and Reclaimer next turn, potentially Icetill. Do something like a Saga I'd be happy to see. Soul Cold. I think here we just want to turn off this shenanigans. They do get to potentially change the bauble with the Great Furnace. We also have to consider that Mox Diamond here could be switched with the Mox Diamond in the bin. So if Icetill does put the other Mox Diamond in the bin, they do have ways to kind of potentially make us have to discard to keep a Mox each turn. Okay. I think now we just want to turn this Savannah into Wasteland, because if we draw a land off the top, we get to play Icetill, Wasteland them, play the Wasteland from the bin, Wasteland them. Okay. Engineer, okay. Oh, I don't want a 6. Wonder what they go. Here we get to rid of Savannah. Ah, have this to interact with as well. That's going to be okay. And really heads up play by playing around Echoing Deeps there. Now we're in a bit of a tricky spot. I think we still just want to go after Icetill. Play Savannah. Probably play the... Savannah's interesting because it does obviously get extra lands into the bin potentially. Okay. Is this sorcery speed? I don't think it is. No. Okay. Memories are... Interesting. I think here we want to try to get rid of it with Talon Gates. Here goes Echoing Deeps. Not the worst thing, but they also didn't use the Engineer there, which is interesting. Saga's fine. Knight's a pretty great draw, as it is a real question is, do I need it, or do I actually just want crop rotation? So to crop with Reclaimer, I guess we can play the Depths actually, which makes a bit of sense as it takes the mana away from needing the Reclaimer. So if we play the Depths, that's 1. Okay. Now, probably just want to Wasteland them off the Saga. Doesn't change too much next turn. The other line is return Emery and also return Loki by Wastelanding myself. We still have access for crop rotation. Have the Cam as well. We sadly don't have Bog. Bog was exiled by the Soul Cauldron. I believe. For some reason it's not. Ah, because it's underneath it, of course. There it is. Quick thinking. Yeah, I honestly don't mind just turning both of these off. Let's go after. Go after the Great Furnace. That also turns off the Mox. And then I will return the... You get a free. Gold is pretty good. And they have haste for it, which I believe just goes off with the Cam. Not much. Yeah. There's not much I could do. It's really like Endurance off the top would have been pretty cool. Obviously, Echoing Deeps is there. We can't even like try to crop away the Talon gates. I think that's just going to be... Yeah, so obviously this. Tricky. The roads been great. Obviously, Force of Vigors and the Collector Ouphe. Really having answers for the early goblins are the big one. I don't mind the Endurance, especially as a beta. I think like Safekeeper is interesting because there are some, like obviously Teeg the Ouphe we kind of care about. Karakas has a lot of play to it. I could see going down to like 1 depths, but knowing that they have incremental graveyard hate is always pretty tough as well. Really like the swords, the reclaimers. Actually quite tricky because I feel like we have a like decent time against them. I could see going down on Moxen. Bojuka Bog is still good. Like Sejiri Steppe still pretty decent, especially as they typically bring in some number of some amount of hate. The Doorkeeper Thrull. I don't mind those either because it turns off a few of their ETBs, so I don't want to get too heavy on. We are pretty heavy on removal. Maybe the extra endurance aren't. Let's see, like 2 cubs each. Potentially go down on a crop. Knight's fine, but a little bit slow. I don't mind. Just so many good cards here that it's probably a bit of a trap to over sideboard, and maybe even this is sideboarding, but we'll see how this plays out. Okay, pretty happy to keep this. I mean, access to turn 2 Doorkeeper Thrull is pretty sweet. I mean, Doorkeeper Thrull into... Actually pretty interesting, because we could go turn on Green Suns to Dryad Arbor, or we could hold up Force turn 1, Doorkeeper turn 2, or Doorkeeper turn 2 and then Green Suns for Ouphe. I don't mind not Green Sunning, just to hold up the Force, but then also have that turn 2 Doorkeeper, turn 3 Collector Ouphe. See the Force of Vigor. Okay. Kind of like just holding up the fetch for basic forest and then being able to get Doorkeeper Thrull. Just in case they did go for some sort of Blood Moon effect out of the board. I would love to see like a tap out for Goblin Engineer. Ooh, Saga. I think there, with the trigger on the stack, we want to potentially get rid of this. Do we really care about it? I think we do enough. Like, yeah, it's tricky again, but I think we. They're one floating. They can then get a Lotus Petal back and potentially use that. Which I really hope it is Engineer. Flute. Okay. Ooh. It's an as ability, so they still get to name, but if it was an ETB, this would actually interact with it. Pretty interesting. Sadly, I don't think Green Suns works the way that I want it to. So if they were to name Green Sun Zenith, I don't think you can cast Green Suns for one, pay the extra, go from there. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Because now we get to hold up a Seiju on the flute and then potentially just go for the Green Suns. Also don't want to give them the mana. This is what, an extra 3? Because of that, I'm pretty happy to besiege this. And then be able to Green Suns, but also hold up Karakas. A Bojuka Bog would be kind of cool as well. Obviously, Sword's pretty great. Hey, Mangork, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Yuri, I don't know if that's still a card, but obviously that's quite good on this board if we do get Ouphe here, which I think is just the best card to get. The other thought is tapping out for Knight of the Reliquary, or even Endurance. Endurance is pretty interesting because Green Suns still, like, they still get to, like, get things onto the board. Hey, I'm sure that is really tough. I hope it's going okay. I have a few friends going through the same thing. I'm just going to Endurance. Oh, did we keep it, but... Oh, did we take them both out or just keep... I think we kept one. We did keep one. Okay, cool. Oh, but the Thrull! Oh, no! Tough. That's quite funny. That is quite funny. Hey, Martin. Very cool to catch you. Hope you're doing well. Very much appreciate the work you do. Hey, Moose. I'm also glad it's Legacy, but I apologize for this entrapment. Okay. That's not too bad, as, like, the Emery, we can still Karakas the Emery. Nice. It's funny, like, obviously, like, Badgermole Cub is also turned off. But I think we need to play it just for the beats. Having the swords open is quite nice, especially if they try to play something and equip the skateboard. We can obviously respond. Yeah, just some tricky. We do have 4 mana though, so we can untap and draw into something like a Force of Vigor. We still have a clock, so, you know, we're not doing too bad. Badgermole is a very cool card. There was a cool loop that our opponent had against... Did they try to equip? They try to equip, I kind of just want to allow them to have it, but I think here we just have to go after it. They have 1 card left. Like, we do have the Karakas as an answer, but I really don't want them getting any sort of value. We really need to close this game out. I'll draw it to, like, Bog. Wasteland's not bad. We can potentially take them off mana, but I think the role of Wasteland here is potentially to keep them off Saga. Saga would get away from this game pretty quickly. Don't think taking them off white is relevant here. I'm gonna think if they have like a flash creature. I don't believe they do. They obviously have a pretty big yard, and they do have a dragon engine in there. A little scary. Which is unearthed, so maybe that is a reason to go after a land with Wasteland. I don't believe they have a... Oh, they have a Saga. Interesting. I can only assume here that they're wanting to sacrifice this. I will go to main phase. We'll draw. Enters all leaves? That's pretty nuts. I think we copied Saga. The 5 card. They have to have a removal spell or a blocker for our onboard. If they're using this star here, I think we're in a pretty good, at least for net. We also don't want a 6 because we want to be able to use the Karakas if they play potentially a legendary creature. Now, That is Dryad Arbor. Am doing some fogging. Question is Misty for Dryad Arbor better than holding up the Mox? Almost think it is, because it's only an extra damage for the Saga that gets in, but this is an extra damage that goes wide. Okay. Nice. All right, team, let me know what you think about sideboarding. I'm just going to the bathroom. I'll be back in a second. Yeah, maybe the Scythecats are just a little bit too... I could even see like a Mox coming out. Don't mind the flutes. Endurance seems like a decent spell. Just being able to get rid of their graveyard multiple times is quite nice. I don't mind one Badgermole as just a way to be able to... Sorry, one Cub. Just as a way to get above some of their burn spells, especially on something like a Collector Ouphe or the Doorkeeper Thrull. Yeah. Yeah, maybe... Very tricky. I feel like, yeah, the flutes are tough because there's only so many things that I just don't want them to have in play. Still like the crops. Ah! Maybe just a skim. I think it is just going to be a little skim. Yeah. Maybe not the Cub. Maybe the Safekeeper. My thought on Cub is that it does get things like Collector Ouphe or Doorkeeper Thrull potentially above their burn spells. This is a fine hand because it is access to obviously Wasteland on Saga, drop for Karakas turn 1 if needed, and then like has a plan of Force of Vigor. It's pretty happy to keep this. It doesn't have a swords, but that's a tough one. I think it has a really nice plan as well. It doesn't have a great answer to Welder straight away, but maybe we can find it. Okay. I think here I'm pretty happy to try to like run out my mana and get towards Dark Depths. I mean, we are one crop away from being able to combo off next turn. Crop for Yavimaya, crop for Dark Depths, play the stage. Yeah, it's tough. I feel like a lot of our sideboard is just really good, like, answers to a lot of different things, but a lot of these are also quite good against Painter. So I am in the position where I am probably overthinking how much to bring in and just trying to keep that plan still around. And Loki and the baubles are just so good. They see the crop. There is a thought of just going down on like getting rid of the Dryad Arbor for Karakas, Karakas to Loki, Wasteland the Hulk. The world isn't doing too much right now. Could also just try to get the Knight in play as a 4/4. And then the following turn we have access to enough mana for stage depth and also crop rotation for something like Sejiri Steppe. So this is a Loki that whenever a player or permanent becomes the target of an ability you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So if you bauble me, trigger, it does target me, so you draw a card straight away, and then you draw a card off the bauble, which is pretty sweet. I think I'm pretty happy to try to win the game, which would be fetching here, playing the Knight as a 4/4, and then next turn we have stage depth through Knight and crop for Sejiri Steppe if needed. I just don't care too much about the Loki drawing cards. I find there, like, if I'm going to crop for the Karakas, I'm going to Wasteland them. I'm going back. They still have the Welder. They have obviously drawn a card off the bauble, a second card off the bauble. Okay. Yeah. Flute is pretty good. I assume Flute's on Knight. Force of Vigor. Wow. Really good names in this game and the last one when I had just the Green Suns. They did know the Force, I believe, from the first bauble. Yeah. Mox Diamond would be kind of cool. Some sort of way to ramp. Nemo. kind of want a Wasteland Bog. Also, Wasteland the Saga. Play Safekeeper, play Reclaimer, hold up rotation. Definitely want to deal with Saga. Interesting. That's obviously quite good against our stage. Yeah, so I think here we actually want to go. I don't think if I can. Kind of want to go crop first, bog trigger on the stack, force these two, and that way they can only get back. I guess they can get back the flute, but still. We're also going to go too wide with this. Let's go. They can get back because they can get rid of this. They can obviously, if I force first pitching Knight, they can then, in response to me targeting these two, they can switch this with their Disruptor Flute or the Bauble, which obviously is quite good with the Loki. But I want to try to... I guess I could bog in response. If both are still legal targets. There we go. So let's go hit these two, pitch the Knight. Shouldn't really have floated a green. Very true, yeah. If I bog first and they have to go for Welder, well, they don't have to, but they most likely do. But given that they have Lotus Petal, they could probably just let it resolve, play the Petal, get rid of the Petal, play or keep the Petal. When this goes, they can then get it back. Didn't mean to float the green, because now they can change phase. Yeah. Tricky. assume here it could just be a Phyrexian Dragon engine. A lot of small things really adding up. Definitely very rusty. Even obviously floating the mana. Small things like that. Tough. Really tough. But a good, definitely good learning curve. Those aren't issues, or they aren't mistakes that I'm going to make again on those same problems. But that's what we're here for. Here to definitely learn more about the format. Yeah, I feel like if the painted deck goes well with Loki, then Orcish Bowmaster surely has to make some sort of return. It's a great way to kind of stop their card advantage. Obviously, dealing with the Loki, dealing with other goblins if need be. Even an engineer, if they obviously go to draw an extra card, you can play the Orcish Bowmaster, deal 1 to engineer, they draw a card, trigger, you deal the extra 1 to kill it off. Yeah, good learning curve. Very cool deck though. It's tricky. I think as well as not having answers to the early goblins can really hurt you, especially with sewer camp being such a easy way to go off. That Goblin Welder is definitely a lot more of a target. Tricky. We can update the score, of course. I believe you're 150. Yeah, good mix of decks. Painter, Jeskai control, Show and Tell, Cradle control. A lot of challenging matchups. Yeah, the cam is super strong. Not too sure what other cards from Loki's set have made it into Legacy. I'm trying to think what that Loki's even from. I assume the type of novel. Marvel superhero. Another DB account. Very interesting. A one lander, which is not really where we want to be, so pretty happy to mulligan this. No green mana, which is pretty tricky as well. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of just hoping that the top's going to be green. This is actually pretty good. Keep this bottom, the Talon gates bottom, the... kind of like the Mox in case we do need the turn 1 Gaddock Teeg, and also obviously Cub is pretty sweet. It's actually really tricky because if the Sage is also quite strong, having that turn 1 is... It could be the Savannah, and that way we just have 2 mana on turn 2. But if we want to be able to use the Sejiri, that's obviously quite tough. I think this is fine. Ancient Tomb. Okay, the Gaddock Teeg is looking decent. A Shrike. Guess we can hope. So let's play the Misty because he gets an extra land into the bin, which is relevant for something like a Reclaimer. Pass them up. Get rid of it. Fetch for Savannah. And then obviously this does turn off Eldrazi command, which is pretty cool. Wasteland off the top would be great. Endurance. So access to no great attacks for them. Play Safekeeper, hold up Endurance. Practicing back a Besieger is very cool. And think of that. Yeah, that is very cool. I would assume maybe the targets here are things like a key. I don't know if they play like, I guess they have Lotus Petals if they need that. Like maybe like a map. So I get like another, yeah, a map effect. I kind of hope they attack with one construct here, thinking that we don't have obviously a big body. And obviously get them with these. Well, they do. Because a 4/4 knight is actually quite good for me, I'm just gonna do nothing here. Okay. Exactly why. Actually, I don't want to do anything main phase. I want to see how they block. Can attack again with this and this. Because this still is 3. Ooh, Fantastica. Okay. Fantastica and a which is a saga. You may play as well, so they can play the lands. Only hope. Obviously, the knight can become a 5/5 thanks to the Safekeeper. Saga. Unearth. Didn't see that coming. That's one spell. Oh, they hit a Forge and a Tomb. Hopefully is not enough. Nice. Jamal. Okay. Let's have a good think about this. Teeg doing a lot of work. I'm trying to think if we Talon gates out one of these, they have obviously 2 blockers. I could also float 2 mana. Oh, Talon gates, thanks to Safekeeper. Talon gates. Ah, stick. Okay, so let's go 2 mana. I haven't done the math, but I think it's correct. Because we can obviously fetch a Talon gates, get rid of one, play the Badgermole, get rid of another. They have 1 blocker for, say, this, and they take 2, 4, 5, 6. That would turn off the tombs, which is pretty interesting. Is there another way to do it? Actually, I can pump this up again. That would be 2, 4, 6, 7, putting them to 1. Okay, is there another way? Let's have a quick think. Okay, so if we did the double Talon gates, we would get through with most likely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because they would block the construct token with the endurance. We could also get rid of the token and the Flesh Raker, so they have to block with a Flesh Raker, but then they block the Teeg, so that's why we keep the construct token, if we care about the Teeg. Because then maybe the Teeg turns on the ability for them to flash back. Teeg turning off, that is fantastic. I'm just going to go with it. I think this is right. Get rid of this. Go and get Talon gates. Talon gates this away. And then let's play. But the Badgermole has to go on the Talon gates. And then we can back Talon gates. Sorry. Let's just go for it itself. Back the Talon gates. Riga, get rid of. I guess they can't block the T because then they would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so we do have to take out. This obviously turns off the Ancient Tombs still. 2, 4, 6. Yep, that would go to 2. We can hope that this is enough. A lot of mana. The other play was to hold up double Talon Gate off the knight. That's 1 spell. Make a token. Okay. Interesting. Us. Reclaimer. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may have that become a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel like you were just attacking with everything. Yeah. Okay. We like the Force of Vigors. We like the Erodes. Doorkeeper Thrull's are pretty interesting. Like, I assume they're playing the One Ring. Does that really matter? Probably not. We did see Mystic Forge. Yeah, now just attack. Nice one, Dougal. Congratulations. Like, Safekeeper Teeg is kind of like a nice little combo. I don't mind the endurance coming down. Silence on the draw is just a bit tricky. But I kind of like Force of Vigor being our silence on the draw, because at least you can hit things like Mystic Forge in response to being hit by a key, or go after some of their big threats. We really want to have access to dealing with Fleshraker. Don't think we can bring in the silences for like Car either. The flutes are kind of interesting, but again, I don't want to over sideboard. So like obviously Wastelands, like maybe down to 1 Cub. But Badgermole's fine, but maybe just a little bit slow. Maybe like 2 Cubs or 3 Cubs and just keep everything else and go from there. I think the additional removal and the Force of Vigors should allow us to have a fair bit of game. I just want to see a bit more of the deck as well. Ooh. The issue with this hand is that it doesn't really do anything against a key start with a mana rock or a glaring Fleshraker. I didn't know last night. You don't need the card to be a creature to sacrifice it. When you cast a non-creature spell, you can turn it into a car, but for like its ultimate, it doesn't need to be a creature. You can't like Karakas it with the trigger on the stack or dismember it. You have to Force of Vigor it. I'm gonna see where this goes. No, I think it's a trap. I think it's a real trap. We don't have green mana. Like, there are a few starts that Wasteland just doesn't really do much against, so a Force of Vigor hand would be pretty sweet. This is pretty close. Like, it's a turn 1 creature and also a road, or creature plus crop, so I'm going to keep this and bottom the Icetill. That's just a bit far off. This is also just land, crop for Dark Depths, go off. Here's the key. Okay. Honestly, not the worst. We have kind of like just going Yav creature and not holding up a road here. I guess they do also have access to Ozluk's command, and they'll definitely have access to it with the ring drawing cards to deal with the depths, but it's a play. I think it's probably our best bet after this sort of stuff. I think sadly these sort of starts you just have to kind of take on the chin as a non-Force of Will deck. I think best draw next turn is just a land to pitch the Mox Diamond to potentially hold up the Erode if we need to get rid of something like a Khan or potentially a Fleshraker. This is probably just a Colligan's command. Mana, get rid of the Reclaimer. Or look, draw. But I guess with the ring, you don't really need to draw too much. We could have played the Mox Diamond to hold up crop here to save the Reclaimer, but I don't think that's needed. And honestly, one command down is okay for us. I mean, we still have Ouphe off the top, which would obviously lose the Mox Diamond too, but I think that's kind of cool just to know that's a thing. Okay. I think we go for stage and then hold up a Seiju in response to them untapping the Grim. But they might even just try to untap the One Ring. There's also a world where it's just correct to play the Mox. Because that allows us to hold up a road. We're probably not using the Boseiju, knowing that we need the extra mana for crop rotation. And we also need, actually, we also need the land in play, because Mox Diamond, the Boseiju, don't draw a land, does not help with crop rotation, because we need crop to find Dark Depths while Yavimaya is still in play, so that Dark Depths taps for a mana. This does something. So you do get to untap it again and float the mana, but eventually that extra mana isn't bad. But we weren't even supposed to. Yeah, I think we're gone. We're gone. I don't think we have a game there. But at least here we get to bring in the Deafening Silences, which is we go a little bit looser on the Knights. Like they're good, but I think we could also go down on a Mox. Just test this. Yeah, I don't mind like some flutes even. I like having some answers to to Glaring Flesh Raker, but I feel like Deafening Silence somewhat answers it. Yeah. That is very true. Maybe I did make an oversight on what we're actually cutting. Okay. This really relies on Cub, which obviously this hand doesn't do anything against these like Grim starts, so we kind of have to mulligan that. This is better. This is like turn 1 Deafening Silence. We have Force of Vigor potentially. I think here the cut is actually just going to be Loot, because then we still have a green card for Force if needed. And then also a threat to play. Yeah, I can definitely understand Martin. I think that's a great point. I think, again, probably my time out of the format just made me a little bit skittish when it comes to sideboarding. Probably wanting a bit more than I actually need. I'm going to play the Cub on the Boseiju. which again with Karakas is kind of cool. I don't think it will come up, but if it does, that's pretty sweet. But obviously being able to build out the board is pretty nice. Okay. Fetch this. Play ice. Back a wins. And then I will fetch here just because it means next time we can, of course, hard cast the Force of Vigor. And I can just get Reclaim it into play now. Okay. I mean, hitting Mox and Saga is kind of nice. Hmm. Two, four. I guess I could play the Dark Depths and see if we hit on play on a Blade, but that is pretty low. Could also try to get Wasteland going, but obviously that comes in tapped off the Reclaimer, so that's kind of that mana healer. We also could erode now and then hold up Force of Vigor. I think we play the Depths first, because if we play the Depths and do hit Saga or Wasteland, we get to play either. But if we play the Windswept Heath first and then hit either piece, we can't obviously play both. But this is really just in case we hit the stage. Now we play Windswept. Take them off. Upkeep. A little bit tricky because we don't have access to both Reclaimer mana and Force. But I think we really want to force these two. There was a world where I could get Yavimaya, but I don't like that. Doesn't really do a whole lot. It doesn't obviously find me the Wasteland. Probably pretty happy to find Dryad Arbor. Some cool decks tonight. This is what Eldrazi. Eldrazi, call it. Trokair. Nice. E. Okay. Pretty good. I don't think they're digging for land. Maybe they wanted to see the full amount before they went for that. We still don't want to draw. Oh, there's stage. Okay. That's something. Green Suns would be pretty sweet. Okay. Did we keep in Safekeeper? We did. Okay, so let's go 2 mana. Green Suns first. I don't want to put Safekeeper into the bin off the trigger. I'm gonna do it now. Each. Then we get attacks here. Hold up Reclaimer. I feel like with the ring, the Safekeeper, and the Lage, it's going to be really tricky for them. Because obviously Karakas doesn't work, Kozilek's command doesn't work. I don't believe they play like a Glacial Chasm, but of course we could Reclaimer. We could try to go off, but again, Deafening Silence is really tough. If they have some way to bounce the Deafening Silence, we can Talon Gates out the Glowing Flesh Raker that's not summoning sick in response to make sure that the opposite don't have enough triggers. I mean, even if they bridge, we can Boseiju the bridge. Maybe I was actually supposed to Talon Gates out in response to the triggers. Yeah, I didn't take into consideration double trigger. Get rid of this. This is obviously targeting Outrage, Talon Gates, trigger this. Road goes into the bin. I also want to make sure I get around. Very cool. Well, we finished on a high, which is nice. Yeah, definitely a lot of learnings, which is actually always a nice takeaway. A lot of just small things I can definitely work on in terms of even trying to coming back to streaming and playing as well. I think I should definitely go back to playing on my local a lot more than just trying to stream as well. Yeah, deck was sweet. Deck had a lot of game to it. I think potentially at times I just either over sideboarded or didn't have a clear understanding of just how I should be sideboarding. With just a few matchups where there's just so much you could bring in. Yeah, deck was cool. Like I think the Teeg in the main deck was quite nice. Obviously against Cradle control and Eldrazi Tron right there. Against Jeskai control, it can be pretty strong. Probably not so much show and tell in Painter. Yeah, good a deck. I think that like the 4 swords, like 3 crops, like you could potentially have an additional crop. I dropped the crop number 4 because I really like Martin playing the 3, but I also don't feel like there's too many things where you really need that extra version. It is obviously great, but I feel like it doesn't do anything against the card decks, which are everywhere. And obviously just makes space for something else as well, so 6 would have been pretty sweet. I haven't really played around too much with 6, but I think there's obviously a lot of game to it being able to play more than just lands from your bin, so it's always pretty cool. Endurance I've just always liked because it allows us to potentially re-tutor for creatures or lands we want from Green Suns or Night, or of course interact with opponents, which against the Painter deck, having Endurance in the main deck is obviously quite nice. The mana base was pretty good. Like I did skimp on the Once Upon a Times just to fit more meat into the deck, but Once can be really nice as well just to make sure it all works. Yeah, the even against Cradle control, like being able to end step crop the Wasteland to take them off their tapped Cradle before they get to untap with it is always just a really nice feeling, especially in a version with 2 Flagstones, especially in a version with the 4 Badgermoles. You just know that with that crop rotation, it's not going to be as big of a sort of cost to you as it is more traditional build. The Cubs were pretty good. It's really tricky because it is somewhat of a Tarmogoyf, but obviously like a 2025 Tarmogoyf. Maybe even 2024. Insane. But I do like that it does a few things. Obviously, Trample is pretty huge against decks that go wide. And also being able to pump up some of your other creatures is valid. So things like, you know, Collector Ouphe against a Painter deck that's dealing damage in 2s or 3s or even 4s with, say, Fury. It's not too hard to get it out of that range. Obviously, against some of the decks like Delver, if you're wanting to get things, you wanted to get like Reclaimer out of bolt range without having lands in the bin, then that's obviously a great way to do it as well. So yeah, Cub just feels, I feel like this is the Cub sort of deck, because you just have so many ways to actually make use of it, not just on your turn, but also your opponent's turn. You have crop rotations, you have Knights, Reclaimers, you have Green Sun Zenith, you have crop rotations, you have ways to play lands back from the graveyard. There was a world where I was playing the extra Erode in the main deck to have like 5 interactions before board, which is kind of nice. I feel like there's a few games this league at least where we just really wanted that extra removal, but didn't get there. That's magic. A huge thank you to all of you coming and watching. A big thank you to all of those from Andre's stream for sticking around. That's obviously really cool. Yeah, I'll be back most likely sometime this weekend. Probably just with some more depths. Probably honestly just have a look at a bit of a sideboard map and map out how I actually want to go about main deck and sideboard and where I actually trim. Because guessing when you have the clock on as well for sideboarding isn't too great of an experience. Yeah, the deck was great. I didn't miss, I play Naya in paper. I definitely didn't miss the red. I think there's so much you can do with green-white, and there's so much power in just keeping it and honing in on that sort of 3-color deck where you have obviously green and white, but then there's a lot of colorless mana as well that you really have to respect that. Yeah, deck was cool. I'm going to see quickly who else is streaming and send you over there. A big thank you again to those who followed. Obviously just really nice way to support. And obviously for the new subs, but definitely not needed. I'm going to send you over to Gabe because he is always a riot. And I'm going to go to bed. But a huge thank you again. If you have any questions, definitely check out the Green Sun Zenith Discord, or of course the Lands Discord, which does have a green-white / Naya section of deck. So everyone's really, really nice and good time. All right, next time.